Alright, why exactly would you have peeled off? Let's say you're
That is a good question. I was
heading
thinking
down
maybe,
from the gold district.
um, do the clans up north have like individual banners or anything like distinguishing marks?
Um, the Rivalan clans don't have distinguishing banners. However, most of them carry scrimshod pendants. Generally, it's of an animal because a lot of them are like the clans are sort of based on animal thing names. Although
Right.
not all of them. Typically, they carry around their neck on a leather thong a like scrimshod uh, trout head bone that's shaped into the shape of whatever animal their or whatever sort of totem their clan identifies with, and you can actually tell sort of their rank by it because the higher ranking members get older. Ones they'll have like family heirlooms, ones that haven't been recently sort of scrimshod. They'll have like ones that have been passed down through their families because it's supposed to gather the strength of generations and the strength of nature and things like that.
Right.
So yes, they do have identifying markers.
Okay, so I could recognize like I guess a scout from my own clan if I saw one in Ravala.
All right. As you were heading from the gold district up to the northern market, uh, you are sort of trailing at the back, sort of remembering to yourself about the stealth mission you sort of undertook in the Gold District to follow where that cultist had been taken to, um, knowing that he's sort of being held in that far area, the sort of what's it, the Bailey, a Bailey for the Gold Guard. And as you're thinking about this, you fall behind maybe a little bit, lost in your own thoughts. Um, you're maybe 3 or 4 blocks behind them as they turn into the alleyway to Toman's Tinctures and Tonics. But there is almost a preternatural sense that passes through you as you look up and see amongst these sort of merchants that are clad in usually quite nicely, not exactly highly dressed in like fine silks of bright garish colors, but they're each wearing very well made, sort of pragmatic clothing, and fairly, none of them are ragged or dirty. But standing out in a corner, looking a little bit out of place, are 3 very burly looking men. Um, Significantly taller than most of the people around them, most of them taller by about 6 inches. And they are not clad in fine clothing, they are clad in heavy furs. What appears to be some sort of deer or buck. And they are. Roll a perception check.
Nope. There we go. Wow. What? Not very perceptive, am I?
You do not. You don't see any more distinguishing anything that distinguishes them more than that. But they do look supremely out of place, and they turn. They're scanning the streets, and one of them catches you in his eyesight, and he pauses, and you can see he elbows the 2 men next to him and makes a quiet nod towards you, and they start heading in your direction.
All right. Do we have a general idea of where I am on this map?
uh, you would be close. You were about 3 to 4 blocks behind him. The Toman's Tinctures and Tonics are up here, so you'd be in this sort of general area up around here. There are, and it's a lot more. It's a little bit more densely packed than the map would have you. It's a more of a layout. There's a lot more alleyways and places you could sort of hide into and disappear into if you needed to.
All right. I'm gonna head in the other way, but how, like, where is? I want to go in the direction of like more people.
All right, so you were gonna want to head closer to the center, towards
All right.
the east. All right, um, you sort of lower your head and try to blend in with the rather sizable crowd that is moving about. It is, despite the fact that Mbobale has lost a lot of its population recently, it's still an extremely large and vibrant city with quite a bit of life. Go ahead and roll a stealth check for me.
All right. That is a plus what? 2. 11.
All right, pretty good, pretty good. You join a group of about 3 merchants. They're pushing small carts that have large canvas canopies that block out the sun overhead. You try to hunch down a little bit, making yourself as sort of nondescript as possible, or discreet as possible, trying to be nondescript as you head east. Let me see. Let me roll a perception check for them. Uh, they only follow you for maybe 3 or 4 blocks, and then the crowd grows in size as you get closer to the central areas of the North Market, the most populated areas of the North Market, and you do after maybe half an hour, you don't see them anymore. As you look around, it seems that you have lost them, but now you are standing in a huge throng. It's an extremely sort of loud market. Let me see if I can find some market sounds here, just because.
All right.
Because I might as well go to table.
Well, in the meantime, while I do that, I do want to find an alleyway now, like somewhere I can shapeshift without it being a little too weird.
All right. Let's see. Abandoned fair, age of sale. Why can't they just have like market? Just have market. Let's see.
Right?
This will. There you go. Do Dwarven City. Then at least it's something. All right.
I'm trying to figure out what I want to turn into. Something with
You duck into a, knowing that you pretty sure you've lost them in the large sort of group of merchants, and now the sort of throng of customers of the central part of the northern market. You ease your way away from the crowd into a small alley. There is the alley is sort of dark and grimy, and there is a large pile piled up at the sort of next to the building of what appears to be old refuse, that reeks terribly, but it does offer a fair amount of cover from prying eyes, and it is keeping many people from walking through this area.
trying to find a beast that would be inconspicuous but have good. So wait, oh yeah, it's just dog, doesn't it? I'm looking at 5e tools.
Uh, yeah, there might be. There's quite a few beasts. I'm not sure how many. What you're looking at has, or if it has all the beasts in 5th edition, or just like the ones that are sort of like in the general outline.
Yeah, it's kind of like a lot of giant things and your general like, just cow. I can turn into a fucking cow if I wanted to. But I also got like this where we got name from.
That is true. Roll a nature check.
Sure. Okay. I am. That's 3. I apparently don't know Mubala that well.
You haven't spent a lot of time in large cities as large as Mwabala. Um, you're not 100% sure of, you know, exactly every animal that you would expect to see in the city, but you do have the examples around you. You have seen there are things like rats, mice, dogs, cats. Uh, there's ponies that are quite prominent, and camels here as well as a large flightless bird called an embrich.
Oh, fuck. Your stats for cat. I'm dumb. Alright, I'll turn into a fucking cat.
Your bones twist and crunch, and there's almost like a slurping sound as your body shrinks smaller and smaller, but yet your eyes grow keener and keener as the dim light of the alleyway becomes as good as bright sunlight as you shrink down to the form of a short-haired gray cat, now sort of huddled behind a refuse pile. As a cat, the smell of the refuse is more pronounced and prominent, and yet at the same time less disgusting and less sort of. Well, you know, it just doesn't smell as quite as bad to you,
Right.
even though you can smell it better. You can actually pick out individual parts of it, as you can smell both like feces and food waste and things like that. But
Nice.
you are now the form of a small, short-haired gray cat.
Alright, I'm going to try and double back and see if I can find those fuckers.
All
I
right,
want to track them down.
roll a. Uh, well, it's gonna be. I guess it'll be a tracking check. You head back to the last place you saw them. Your cat nose not nearly as strong as a dog's, but still far stronger than you, even in your hack form, and your eyes even keener, able to pick out fine details before that you would never have noticed before. You head through the North Market, closer to Toman's Tinctures and Tonics, to the last place you saw him, and try.
Actually, hang on. Before we go any further, would I be able to make my way up to the rooftops and like look from there? As
Sure.
okay, cool.
Make an athletics check with advantage,
Alrighty.
using cat stats, obviously.
So I would get a -4. Alright. 14.
All right, you easily climb to the rooftops. Those buildings are largely made of stone, so it's not as easy as climbing wood. Even so, you leap easily from like a windowsill up to a small post, up to this flat roof of one of these squat buildings, and begin walking along the edge, eyeing the people beneath you that are moving to and fro. The sound of the merchants in your ears behind you. They pay you little mind. As you walk the roofs, you actually can smell the smell of another cat that has passed through within the last couple days. But your mind is focused elsewhere as you begin trying to pick out or double back to where you previously saw them, so you can hopefully pick up their track. Go ahead and roll a tracking check, which would be a wisdom check or survival, and you do have advantage on this one as well.
The cat has advantage on wisdom checks
Yes.
that rely on smell, so that.
Yep, you do have advantage on this one.
Alright, so that's. I guess just a +1 then. Wait, hang on. I think because I'm a druid, I retain.
You should retain all your brain stats. Yeah.
I think I would continue.
You just lose your strength, constitution, and dexterity, but you keep your intelligence and wisdom and charisma on your druid, and you gain advantage from the cap.
So, just damn.
You're not very
Roll 20 trying to get new kills.
you're not very successful trying to seek out these orcs. Um, you go to the previous place you left them, a sort of torch-bearing post on a corner that was still smoldering when last you walked by. You come close to it, but all you can smell is the stink of smoke in the air and the smell of dirt and unwashed bodies that crowd around you as people pass by. A small girl actually comes up to you and says, "Oh, look at the kitty!" As she bends down and sort of scritches behind your ears, and as she's doing that,
No.
you do see what appears to be one of the men in furs just disappearing into an alleyway.
Alright.
I will say, as you head in if you head in that direction, the girl tries to grab you and say, "Where you going, kitty?" and keeps trying to pet you.
Is it still a little bit crowded?
It is fairly crowded here.
Alright. I guess it'd be a stealth check to kind of slip out of her sight, like in between feet and shit, while still following that guy to the alley.
Sure. Let me roll real fast. Oh yeah, no, she's technically trying to grapple you, so it'd be an opposed.
Oh, okay.
It would be opposing it. However, she rolled a 1 because she has a -1 strength because she's a child. So unless you did fucking terrible, I can't imagine. Because there's no need. Yeah, there's no need to even roll. You can't get lower than 1 because I imagine a cat's dexterity is good. So
yeah, it's also got +4 to stealth.
So you're easily able to slip out of her grapple, because your acrobatics cannot be a 1, and you, as she says, "Come back, kitty," but you find your way through the legs of the people that are passing through and quickly leave her behind, heading towards the alley that you saw him disappear into.
Alright. Now what do I see at the end of this alley?
At the end of the alley, there are a couple of stalls that have been set up along it. It's roughly 15 feet wide, paved with like heavy sort of flagstone, but it's covered in sand and dirt. It's largely, well, I won't say largely empty. It's not nearly as crowded as the rest of the market has been. It appears that the people here are sort of on the outskirts, selling what appear to be very low quality items, textiles of inferior make, and sort of leather clothing that has holes in it and has not been properly tanned. And at the end, there is the 3 men clad in leather armors, or the sort of furs, the leather and the furs, and they are actually talking to a 4th man. He is dressed in similar fashion, but just looking at him, he is dressed. The furs that he's wearing are less dirty, better kept, of a higher quality of animal. It looks like he has some fox fur that is lining the collar of his leather jerkin. He is standing behind a table that has wares arrayed across it. It looks like scrimshaw and tanned leather, and they are talking to each other, the 4 men together, one behind the table, and the 3 followed in front.
Alright, can I make a stealth check to approach them
Yes.
and Let's see. It's 4 actually. Oh shit. Did I have advantage on stealth? Probably not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so that's a wash one. So that's a 6.
You hear, you try to get close, sort of heading towards the edge of the district, sliding behind the tables.
Evan, shut up.
Hiding behind the tables, you try to get close. You are able to make out their voice amongst the din of the crowd. You immediately recognize they are speaking common, but they are speaking a Rivalan dialect of it. You can make out a couple of words as you hear them say, "We're searching," and then it sort of gets blotted out by the rest of the crowd around you. But the man behind the table, the one that's well dressed, the one that appears to be the guy who's posing as a merchant, sort of holds up his hands and says, "This is no place to talk about it. There are too many ears and eyes. Come, retire to our rooms here." As he turns and he walks about 20 feet down the alleyway to a small building, pushes open a wooden door for the rest of the group, and then they all disappear inside.
Okay, so I see them going to like
Yes.
an inn or something.
Yes, they went into a. You're not sure what type of building. Could be an inn. They just passed into a sort of opened door and passed into a building for privacy.
Would I be able to make my way in there?
You sure can try. Roll a perception check.
Right. Ooh, awesome. 11.
There is an open window on the second story of the building. Just eyeing it, you think you could, especially in your current cat form, do a couple of leaps up to it. As you can see, you see there is like a small, it almost looks like a cross beam between two buildings that you could leap up to and balance along and then jump up to the second story window. That would be an acrobatics check.
Alright. That's
Which as a cat should be pretty good.
+2. That's a 9.
You leap up to the crossbeam and your back feet sort of slide off. But it is a wooden beam and your claws dig in and you're sort of left sort of hanging vicariously for a moment, half of your body off the edge, but you are able with some difficulty to scramble back up onto the beam, and you're able to jump up to the second story window. So you do succeed. It's just not, you don't look very great doing it.
Not gracious.
No, it wasn't too hard. It wasn't too hard of a jump. And you find yourself on the second story. It is, from the second story, you can tell that this isn't an inn. It looks more like a storage facility of some sort. Or at least the room you're in is a storage room of some kind. It is filled with boxes from floor to ceiling, wooden crates. Some of them sit open. They're filled with straw, and a couple of them have what appear to be ceramics, pots, and sort of kettles and things of sort of ceramic make sitting around it. It's completely silent except from you do hear muffled voices downstairs, although you cannot quite make out what you can't make out distinct words, so you can't hear exactly what's going on. As you creep through the door, the upstairs room, you can see the door is open, so you don't have to worry about opening as a cat. And there is a stairway leading down to the first floor in the darkness. At this point, the voices are becoming quite raised and argumentative, as one of the men says, "But how did you lose him? I don't care how large the crowd is. It was your job to find him. I was the one that got us here. You find him." What would you... Is there anything you would like to do?
I guess try and continue to listen in and gather some detail about why they're following me or something like that.
Alright. The men continue to have a disagreement over their roles in this current endeavor. As another man, as this man is continuing to yell, another man sort of pipes in and says, "We are all supposed to be looking for him. Don't act like all you have to do is bring us here and sell the goods. The king told us to come and find him. That is our duty. Whenever the king tells us to do this, we go and we do this. We all are responsible, Evolved. Do not try and pass the failures of the group onto us while absolving yourself. You'll find no absolution from the King of Creeping Frost. If we do not return..."
You said evolved?
Evolved, yes. If we do not return, the three of us are not going to be punished while you get to go free back to the clans. We all are punished. If we're lucky, we will return home. If things go as we expect, we will all be killed. Now, pack up your wares. Nobody is going to buy your second-rate goods. Help us track Grondar. Help us find him so that we might return home and be out from this damnable sun, from this terrible kingdom, so that we might go back to Rivehala, where the snows reflect the light, where the water is cold and plentiful, where the game is everywhere, and away from this terrible desert. Fine. I will pack up my gear and we will begin to search again. And you hear the door sort of slams open quite forcefully and then slams shut after a moment.
Alright, so no one else is in there? They're all gone?
Just from a general listen, does not sound like anyone else is in there.
Let's see what I'm gonna do. I think it's probably better for me to come back here at night, so I'll probably have to like wait it out in the tavern or something like that and come back later.
Okay.
That is where they said they were, or where they're staying, right? Where they have rooms.
They have going downstairs, sort of looking around. It does look like they have, even though this isn't like an inn, it does look like they have set up a room, like they're using a storeroom sort of as a room. They've set up some furs along the floor to act as makeshift beds. There's a couple of sort of leather rucksacks that you see have dried meats and some sort of stale like trail biscuits and things like that. Nothing particularly fancy, but it's definitely where they're holing up currently.
Alright. So I will make my way back nighttime, and I guess I'll have to sneak back in. So there'll probably be another acrobatics or stealth or something like that. Get back in that window, if it's still open. Is it still open?
It's just looking up at it. It should be open fine. It doesn't look like it's closed. It just look at a glance at it. It doesn't look like it's been closed in probably years. Sort of open air that sort of thing. But you suspect you should not have any trouble getting back in during the night. As you leave the building, stepping out, you do see the four men looking coldly at each other. The man who was in charge, the sort of rich man in fine furs, motions for them to sort of makes a dismissive motions, saying, "All right, you go that way, you go that way, you go that way. I will go behind and this way. Spread out, search for him, see if you find him." As they split off into four directions, each of them on their own, heading into different parts of the northern market. Their eyes moving relatively slowly, keeping a lookout for you. What would you like to come back later, or would you like to try to tail one of them, or?
I might go to pick one of them off, actually.
They are currently isolated.
Where's the weakest one going? I figure there's one of them that looks like less of a fight.
Roll an insight check.
Right, that would be... Who is... Oh, that's awesome. I love having big bonuses. And then they do that. I think I'm gonna start using my actual dice.
That roll 20 does seem to dislike you, except whenever the roll doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
You're not sure, you're sure who is the strongest. That much is readily apparent. The well-dressed one, the sort of air he has about him, he's a little bit taller. He looks to be in better health. He's clearly the strongest and the man in charge. But of the other three, each one is equally likely to be as weak as the other. You were not able to discern anything about that. You know one of those three. You don't know which one of those three is the weakest among them, though.
Right. All right. I will pick the one going into the least crowded area.
All right. You creep along, easily, making your way with a cat's grace, passing between legs and leaping up to small walls and walking along them with incredible balance and agility. It's not hard to follow this man. He's not trying to be stealthy at all, and he stands generally at least a couple inches around all of the human merchants in the area, until he passes by some beastmen, one of which is a Loxodon who towers even above him. But you're able to continue following him along. He pauses at every corner, and he looks around, rather sort of exasperated, annoyed, shaking his head, muttering to himself. You can barely make out him saying, "Waste of time," as he continues just walking through this huge crowd of people. And then he turns into an alleyway, shaking his head, heading towards a stall that has a delicious aroma that is sort of coming forth from it. The stall is sort of covered in bright silks that are advertising like a roast sort of like kebab. And you can see it. The kebabs are on spits over this huge flame. The grease is dripping off, and he tosses a coin at him. Says, "Give me one." Takes it and starts eating it. Looking around angrily. Roll a perception check for me.
Let's see. What? Roll 20. Hey, I'm actually perceptive this time.
You're super perceptive as a group of children is walking by. They look like street poor beggars covered in dirt. They go to the sort of the kebab cart, and they hold out their hand saying, "Can we have some food, sir?" But this group of four children slyly reaches their hand backwards, and one of them is able to sort of snake their hands up into the leathers of the man you are following, and slides back out with a small coin purse. And he does not notice it. He continued to sit there angrily sort of eating his food. And they turn and begin heading back down the road. And then he reaches to his, he sort of reaches up to his robe and pats it and says, "Wait a second. Where is my coin?" As he turns and he sees the children, and the children start running, and he just chases after them, sort of sprinting down the alleyway, saying, "Come back, you little shits! I know you took my wallet." Are you giving chase?
I will chase him.
All right. Chase.
I don't imagine he'll be able to get very far wearing leather in a desert city.
Chase mechanics. All right. He sprints forward, sort of chasing after the kids. He angrily tries to reach out at one. It eludes his grasp, and he is going to roll a d20 for me.
So flat 20?
Yep, just a flat 20.
Alright.
To see if you run into any chase complications. Alright.
Okay. Hang on a second. I have them in here somewhere.
He sprints out of the alleyway with you close in heel. He bursts out into a passage, and just before you're able to follow him, a large train of people, finely clad, pushing various merchant carts around, sort of splits you up, passes in front of you, blocking off your pursuit. How would you like to try to bypass them?
Starting to wonder if this might be a good spot to duck out and transform back into human or not. I don't know what I'm going to do just yet. I want to find my fucking dice. Just wait. Right there. Here. They're not. Fuck it. I'll find them some other time. I'll find them for next week. Yeah, can I just, like, go around them?
Sure. You can literally, whatever you can think of to do it. And we'll figure out what role that is. If you want to try to sort of skirt around them and skirt through them, make an acrobatics check to leap through them.
No, acrobatics. Okay. It's +2. That is 2 ones in a row. This fucking website just is the death of me.
You have trouble passing through the crowd, as by the time you get through them, he's gained pretty significant distance on you. You are now maybe 40 or 50 feet behind, but still on his track. So the attacker or the chasee has gained ground. As you continue sprinting through the streets. Let's see. He turns a corner, almost slamming into it. He actually has to pause for a moment and push himself off the wall. You navigate it with ease, turning a right angle as you gain a little bit. Roll another d20 to see if there's another chase complication.
I swear to God, there's another goddamn 1 in there. Alright, at least a 12. That's a start.
A 12. Let me go to 12. Alright. The crowd actually disperses a little bit as you don't have any complications during this round of the chase. He leaps over a barrel and you are able to follow. That is not the right button. I need to roll a d20 as well for his chase complication. Ooh. The children turn down a small alleyway, and they come to a wooden fence. This fence is 7 feet tall, but it has a small board that has been broken away, and the children are easily able to duck down, squeezing through it and leaving the man behind. He gets to it, and he has to pause for a second, and he sort of angrily says, "Damn it!" and climbs over it. He stumbles a little bit, but he falls down at the end and has to pull himself up. Make an athletics check.
Right.
Or
That's what
or
it
an
was
acrobatics
for.
check. Make an athletics or an acrobatics check, whichever
Okay.
one. Because either one of those will work.
That is a 6.
You also have some trouble getting over it. You unfortunately don't manage to get any ground on him, as you're just as far away as he also failed his check, so you don't lose or gain any ground. All right. Roll a d20 for chase complication.
Alright. That's a 20.
You have a surge of energy, as you see there, he bursts out of the alleyway into the sunlight, sliding by a cart. You just burst over the cart, leaping through the air, your diminutive cat form flying like an arrow, and you catch up to him. No longer is he 50 feet ahead, he's now only 20 feet ahead, still chasing these children, which have gained on him as well. He will roll for chase complication. He also has no complications. As the children disappear into an alleyway, the sun sort of blotting out their tiny little forms, he dives in head first, not sort of heeding any sort of safety, not worrying about running into anything. He knocks over a couple of crates, but he is absolutely right on their tail now. And as he turns the corner, chasing after him, the children are sort of at the end of a dead-end alleyway. There are 3 buildings that rise up on all 3 sides, some 20 to 30 feet in the air. The ground is heavy cobblestone. It is actually fairly clean, and there is a heavy wrought iron grate that drain that sits in the middle of it. He reaches into his his leathers, breathing heavily, a sheen of sweat on his face, and he pulls out his dagger and says, "Now look, I don't want to hurt any of you children, but the person that took my wallet needs to give it back," as he begins striding forwards towards them. The children roll an insight check.
Huh?
Roll an insight check real fast.
Alright. That's a +5. God damn, dude. Sometimes I like being a druid.
The man is moving towards them, brandishing a dagger. He stands several feet taller than the tallest one, and yet none of them seems particularly scared. They are pushed back against the very edge of the alleyway as he approaches them, and as he steps over the heavy iron grate, it shoots up into the air, and a hand grabs his ankle from the sewers and begins tugging him backwards. He's saying, "What the hell is going on?" He fails his grapple check to break away from the grapple. As you see, one of his legs is yanked down into the grate as he is trying to pull himself away. He reaches for the kid and say, You can keep my wallet, just help me out!" As he's trying to pull himself away. It is quite unsuccessful, as with one final effort, he manages to lift himself up a little bit, and then he's just yanked down into the sewers below.
I think now's a good time to approach and turn back into Grondar.
Your body morphs back from its cat form, turning from a gray, short-haired cat. The bones warping and cracking, the skin making stretching noises as the hair recedes, and you turn back into your the form of Grondar, standing above. I imagine giving a fairly wide berth to the now open drain. You approach. You sort of head towards the children, who look up at you, a little bit defensive, and they say, "What the hell are you? You was just a cat."
I want to pull out 5 gold,
Their eyes
and
light up as you pull out 5 gold.
I tell them, keep them there. You said it's 3 kids, right?
Yeah, there's a few kids, yeah.
Right, yeah. I just like hold out the cord and like, here, just keep them there.
What?
And I turn to that guy. I'm like, why?
He says, or what do you? They like, what do you mean keep them there? Keep them in the sewers.
That's one of yours, isn't it? And I point down the grate, the person yanking them down.
Oh yeah, he's the boss.
Keep them there.
Once they get taken in the sewers, no one gets out.
You can have them when I'm done with them.
They sort of shrug, and they say, the kid says, "It's not my place to answer that question. I'm not the one in charge. If you want him there, you're gonna have to go down there yourself and find out why he took him."
Wait, did he get pulled?
He got pulled into the sewers.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought you said like his foot was stuck in a grate and he was
No, he
trying to get himself.
at first he was just stuck in the grate, and then he got just yanked down by the hand.
Oh shit.
It's like, if you
What
want
can I
to
say?
talk to him, you can go in there yourself.
I flick him one of the coins and I say thanks and I walk off.
He takes it and he like bites it to check for authenticity and says, "Thanks, Mr. Catman."
I'm a superhero now.
But yes, you do know that this guy you were tracking was yanked into the sewers. You do know he's there, and you could sort of try to go after him, heading into the sewers, and to see if you can find out any information. At the very least, him getting sucked into the sewers is pretty odd. But there are 3 others about. That being said, heading into the sewers to chase after him would give you a reason to be in the sewers next week.
Yeah, it does put me in the sewers for next week.
Does put you in the sewers for next week.
Yeah, let's do that.
Alright. Because then you can be together with the group, and everyone can get together next week. Alright.
It all ties up nicely, doesn't it?
It all ties up nicely, so everyone is in place for the next time we play. As you stand over the wrought iron grate, it is pushed to the side a couple of inches. You actually have to ease it over a little bit more, as it had fallen into place a little bit. One of the children comes up behind you and sort of pulls on your robes, and he hands you a small silver whistle of surprisingly good make. And he says, There's lot.
Wait, what was that? You kind of were cutting out there.
The boy comes and he pulls on your robes, or your leather clothing, whatever clothing you have, and as you
Right.
turn, he hands you a small silver whistle. It's actually of surprisingly uh, nice make. It actually looks like it'd be worth a little bit of money, but he hands it to you, and he says, "You gotta watch out down there, Mister Catman. There's a lot of weird things down there.
There's a lot of what?
A lot of sort of strange things that go on in the sewers around here, especially over the past couple months. Um, Sometimes we see strange things in the sewers, and we got this whistle from the boss. And the boss said if we blow it, it'll scare him away, or at least bring help." And he hands it to you.
Thank you.
And he nods his head, and the children take off running off into the streets to probably find another mark and steal their wallet. As you're left with nothing but to descend down into the sewers to chase after the quarry that was chasing after you. Alright, and that will conveniently have you in the sewers next week.